So last week I did a presentation on picking the right running shoes for you, and whenever it was said and done and I included all the research, it was 35 minutes long, and I got a couple of feedback that this information is really good, thank you, but a lot of people weren't listening to the whole thing. So this is my too long didn't read version. And when we look at getting running shoes, primarily people are looking for two things. They want injury prevention and performance enhancement. So let's start with injury prevention. Now, running shoe companies were originally designing shoes based on foot type and based on the way that your foot turned while you were running. That's how we would select the shoe for you. The only problem is that has not shown to prevent injuries. So the thing about, oh, you overpronate, you need a stability shoe or you need a motion control shoe versus a neutral shoe, that has not been shown to be effective in preventing risk of injury. Then minimalist shoes became really popular. And the idea with that was, oh, well, the less you have under your foot strikes can be more natural, and you're going to, it's just going to fix your gait mechanics. Just naturally it'll happen. And that hasn't been shown to be the case when we look at the research. And I've seen people running barefoot and hitting really hard with their heels, which is what it's supposed to fix. And that's not necessarily a bad thing in and of itself. So the idea that you need to fix your heel strike is a misconception, and two, the idea that your running shoe can naturally fix that is false. Then we have the maximalist shoes with a ton of cushion under you. It looks like we're wearing 70s platform shoes, but hey, that cushion is going to protect you because you're not going to hit as hard. And what we found is that's not looking to show to reduce any risk of injury, probably because when you change something, hey, you're running on a softer surface, your brain compensates as trying to maintain that same gait, and it will stiffen up in other places, and that force is just transferred through your body in different ways. And so what can we do to reduce risk of injury with our shoe selection? And there's two things. So we can pick shoes that are comfortable, because the supercomputer between your ears is really the best thing that we have to evaluate all the qualities of a shoe and if it's going to work for you. So find a pair of shoes that are comfortable, because that's going to be what's going to facilitate your natural preferred movement pattern, and that's what we're going to go for. The second thing that you can do is use multiple pairs of shoes. There was a study that found almost a 40% decrease in the risk of injury when you had two pairs of shoes that you rotated. And my understanding of that is that it is building your tolerance for variance in your gait and applying stresses to yourself just a little bit differently so that you don't get those overuse injuries the same way. So that's what I recommend for people for injury prevention, is find something that's comfortable and have at least two pairs of shoes that you rotate. And when we talk about performance enhancement, the three things that shoes can really do for improving your performance are lightweight, longitudinal stiffness, and cushioning. And that's pretty much the model that the Nike 4% or Nike Next Percent had gone with to achieve that. And it really is a slick shoe with a lot of cool technology that is breaking records. And that's the kind of thing that you want to look for performance. Now, if this is not a comfortable shoe for you, or you don't want to spend $250 on a pair of shoes, I wouldn't recommend that. There's other things you can do, but those three things, being lightweight, having good stiffness longitudinally, and being having good cushioning aspects to it, those are things that are going to improve your performance with running shoes. The thing I will add about lightweight is that you don't necessarily have to train in lightweight day in and day out, and it may be advantageous to have a little bit of weight to your shoe so that you can build up that strength that goes along with it and the tolerance for it. And then whenever you hit race day and you put on your flats, and you feel lighter and quicker. So might be a strategy that could work for you. So don't feel like just because I talked about performance enhancement with running shoes that you should only train in racing shoes. That's you can have all kind of different experiences. And again, I err on the side of comfort first. So now let's talk about how we evaluate shoes. And the first thing you want to do is prepare. Like if you're going to try on a new pair of shoes, they show up in the mail, you go to a running store, you're trying on new shoes, you want to set yourself up for success and reproduce the conditions that you're typically going to be running under. So you should wear the socks that you would typically run in. If you wear orthotics, bring those to the store with you and put those in the shoes so that you can feel what those shoes actually feel like when you have those orthotics in. And if you're, you should be testing these shoes out later in the afternoon, because our feet tend to swell up as we go along through the day, and they can also swell up when you go on longer runs. So you want to be under conditions where your feet are taking up their most space. Then we're going to inspect the shoe. And I got these from Christopher Johnson. This is kind of a way of looking at shoes to make sure that they're put together properly. Just because they come from the factory, they're brand new, doesn't mean that they are without defects. So it's worth checking out. So the first thing I do when I get a new pair of shoes is I want to feel on the inside. I want to look for the seams, see if there's any rough spots or anything that's uneven that might wear on me in a funny way whenever I'm longer on the runs. So I feel around for seams. I'm going to look at that on both shoes. Then I'm going to place the shoe down on the table, and I'm going to assess, make sure that they're sitting flat and even with each other. Now these shoes, this is a pair of old shoes. They actually sat pretty good whenever they were brand new. We pull in the camera here. Where they are now, they're kind of falling inward. So if I assess the vertical line, the seam on the back of the shoe and where they sit, when they were new, they were up and down. But now they're starting to collapse inward, and the left side is collapsing in more than the right side. So something to be aware of. And these shoes are just about to be retired here. But these shoes are the ones that I replaced them with. So we'll look at these. So you see how when these sit, they're nice and even vertically. I look at the soles here, make sure that those are sitting evenly, looking for defects in that position, and those are good. Then I'll go and do a rock test. I load vertically through them, see how they handle load, put a little stress laterally, make sure that they feel about the same that way. Then I can do a flick test where I just tap the front of the shoe, and I'm looking that the shoe stabilizes the same way on both shoes there. If I bring up my older shoes, and again, I love these shoes. These are the Ultra Vanishes. They were great when they were brand new, but now that they've got close to 400 miles on them, they've probably seen their last days. Whenever I tap on it, you see how the right one stabilizes versus I tap on the left one and it takes longer to stabilize. So if that's how they came out of the box, that would be a fail. I would say I don't want that pair of shoes. Then I talked about for performance enhancement, I want to look at the stiffness of the shoe. So I can do a break test, and I'm looking at where the shoe breaks whenever I push on it. And on these, right under the ball of the foot is right where I want it to be, and they're good with that. Nike Next Percent, we talked about that carbon plate and that stiffness that they're going for. It doesn't have a break point because it's got a carbon plate in it. So that changes the lever of your foot and makes it move differently when you run. This is an old pair of Brooks Neuro 3. Notice whenever I push on that, they just fold in half. These have no longitudinal stiffness. And you can feel they have a very soft feel to them. Some people might like that. If that's what you prefer, then that's fine. Me personally, this was not a good running shoe for me. Then I'll do a twist test where I look at the qualities that way. I want to compare both shoes to each other, make sure they have the same stiffness with twisting. And again, if I did that on the Nike shoe doesn't really have much twist to it due to the carbon plate and the stiffness that they go for in that shoe. So that's what I look at for looking at defects in the shoe itself and assessing the qualities. And once I do that, I kind of know what a good shoe for me feels like. That way, when you identify a shoe you like, even if they change models or there's a different brand you want to try, there will be characteristics. You're like, oh yeah, that shoe felt really good, and this is what it did with these tests. You can look for that to repeat. Then you want to actually get the shoe to fit. And you want to fit it to the longest toe on the longest foot. So for me, that's my left foot. So I pull out the insole, I set my foot down on it, and what I'm looking for is when I stand up, does my foot line up well with the insole? If the width of my foot, especially with weight on it, because the foot expands out, if it goes out wider than the insole, that shoe is probably not going to be a good fit for me. Then I'll actually try the shoe on, and I want to splay my toes, I want to wiggle my toes and make sure that I've got enough room in the shoe that it fits well and is comfortable with all those different directions I could go. Then I want to put it through some tests. I'm going to hop, skip, and jump and move in some different directions laterally and feel what that shoe might feel like under different conditions if I step off a curb or if I am on a trail, or just moving different directions. I want to make sure that is a good shoe for me. And then I will actually go out and do some running. It doesn't make sense to me when people try on a pair of shoes and they just go for the fit and they don't even walk or run in it. You should get in a little bit of running, even if it's just down the street and back. If you get something in the mail, go out and try it. Most places have a really good return policy these days. If you try it and you don't like it, send it back. It's your feet, it's your run. You need to take care of yourself. And so that was my down and dirty version of how to assess running shoes. If you want to go into the details of the research and whatnot, you can see my more detailed video that we did last week. And I hope you find that helpful. If you have any questions, send us a line.